In the bright midday heat of Seattle, Washington, where the sky was pale blue and the streets shimmered under a thin drizzle left over from an earlier rain, single dad Daniel Brooks hurried across Pine Street with a paper bag of sandwiches in one hand and his 12-year-old son Noah walking beside him. And as the wind pushed the remaining droplets from the trees, the city hummed with its usual Saturday rhythm of buses rumbling, seagulls calling from the waterfront, and coffee shops spilling warm steam into the air. And Daniel, exhausted from his night shift but determined to keep his promise of a father-son lunch, felt his pace slow when he noticed something unusual at the edge of the small parking lot behind the community center. Something that didn't belong in the soft daylight, a shape slumped in stillness near the overflowing storm drain where rainwater trickled down like a silver ribbon. And while Noah chattered about the new bike he wanted, Daniel's eyes stayed fixed on that motionless outline, and a strange tightness gripped his chest as he stepped closer, his boots splashing gently in the shallow puddle. And there, half shielded by a dented wheelchair whose wheels were caked with mud and rust, sat a little girl, her thin legs drawn tightly against her chest, her soaked dress clinging to her frame, her hair plastered across her face as if she had been sitting in harsh rain far longer than the short drizzle that had swept by minutes earlier. And when she shivered, a trembling gasp escaped her lips, a sound so small and fragile it pierced straight through the noise of the city. And Daniel crouched instantly, his voice soft as he asked if she was hurt. But she only stared up at him with wide, terrified eyes the color of storm cloud glass, eyes that held the kind of fear no child should ever know. And Noah's hand tightened around Daniel's sleeve as he whispered that she looked freezing, and Daniel nodded because her arms were covered in goosebumps and bruises shaped like fingerprints, dark and fresh against her pale skin. And she kept glancing over her shoulder as though expecting someone cruel to emerge from the street behind them, someone she desperately prayed would never return. And he asked her name, but she hesitated before whispering, "Maya," her voice trembling like it might break apart midair. And when she shifted, he noticed the way she winced, the way her body curled protectively as if every movement threatened new pain. And he asked gently where her parents were, but Maya shook her head with a frantic desperation that made Daniel's stomach twist, murmuring that they told her to wait in the rain, that they promised they'd come back after talking to someone in a black truck. But she knew they lied, she always knew when they lied. And Daniel felt the weight of her words settle over him like a cold shadow, because no child should say those things with such certainty. And when he reached toward the wheelchair to see if it was stable, she panicked, gripping the metal frame as if it were the only thing in the world she trusted. But as she pushed herself upright slightly, the sleeve of her dress slipped down, revealing a small hospital identification sticker barely clinging to her skin, smeared with rain yet legible enough to show a medical code Daniel recognized from the clinic where he worked. A code used for trauma cases involving children removed from dangerous homes. And his breath caught because that meant she wasn't simply abandoned. She had been in the system recently, and someone had deliberately taken her out of it. And suddenly the fear in her eyes made terrible sense. And while the city lights flickered on signs around them and the sounds of traffic rolled through the afternoon, Daniel realized he was standing in the middle of something far more serious than a lost child left in the rain. Something that could end horribly if he hesitated even a moment. And when he told her he wanted to help her, she shook her head violently, whispering, "Don't let them take me back. Don't let them find me. Please, please." And her voice cracked in a way that felt like someone had shattered glass inside Daniel's chest. And he knew then that calling the authorities right there on the street might terrify her even more. So he tried a different approach, placing his jacket around her trembling shoulders, telling her she could stay with him and Noah for a moment, just long enough to get warm and safe. And though she hesitated, she finally nodded, exhausted and out of options. And Daniel lifted her carefully, feeling how frail she was, how light, how wrong it felt that a child could weigh so little. And Noah guided the squeaking wheelchair beside them as they walked toward Daniel's old blue SUV parked at the curb. And when he helped Maya settle into the backseat, he noticed a torn tag tied loosely to one of the wheelchair handles, a tag printed with a case number he had seen once in a county alert. A case involving suspected trafficking, false medical paperwork, and a child who had vanished without a trace. And the realization struck him so hard he had to steady himself on the door, because this little girl had not simply been abandoned. She had been running for her life. And now, by some twist of fate, she had landed directly in his path. And as he shut the door gently so he wouldn't scare her, Noah climbed in beside her, handing her his hoodie and whispering that she was safe, his voice soft with the kind of empathy Daniel had always hoped to raise in him. And when Daniel started the engine, Maya curled into the seat silently watching him through the mirror, her eyes flickering with a fragile flicker of trust, and he knew the road ahead would be complicated, dangerous even, because whoever had left her in that rain might come looking, but he also knew with absolute certainty that he was not letting her out of his protection, not now, not ever, and as he pulled onto the busy Seattle street flooded with daylight and the distant hiss of the waterfront ferries, he felt the weight of truth settle over him fully, the truth that stunned him, the truth that this little girl's fate had collided with his for a reason he didn't yet understand, and that from this moment forward nothing about his life would ever be the same. And as the SUV rolled forward through the bright day, he whispered to her that she wasn't alone anymore and never would be again, and for the first time her small shoulders relaxed just slightly as if she finally believed it.